Today I would like to talk about how racism is alive and well, how the creative industry has perpetuated this over time, and take a look at 10 shockingly tone-deaf examples within design and advertising that question if we have learned anything at all about equality over the last decade, never mind the last century. So take my hand and come with me as we dive into my deep, deep design pocket and discover more about creative racism. Racism is not dead. It is as old as time. Put aside any ideas you have about how progressive we are becoming as a society because they're pretty much useless. Just when I think the world is slowly developing into a peace-loving place where we are beginning to come together and unite as one, along comes a cold slap in the face to remind me that this is sadly not the case. George Floyd was a 46-year-old father who lived in Minneapolis. On the 25th of May 2020, he was arrested by police officers for passing a counterfeit $20 bill while purchasing cigarettes. Floyd was then placed face down on the street and handcuffed, while a white police officer knelt on his neck for a total of 9 minutes. Needless to say, he died from a cardiac arrest due to the compression of his neck, which restricted the blood flow to his brain, and a further compression to his back that restricted his breathing. All the officers were fired the day after, and the main culprit was charged with third-degree murder and second-degree manslaughter. The other officers were charged with aiding and abetting second-degree murder. After Floyd's murder, demonstrations and protests against the use of excessive force by police officers and the lack of police accountability were held across the globe. Peaceful protests in Minneapolis turned to violence and stores and police precincts were set on fire. As well as property damage, looting also took place and demonstrators had direct run-ins with the police, who then responded with tear gas and rubber bullets. And at the time of writing this, the riots are still happening in Minneapolis. This is just the most recent story in a long line of tragic examples of how society treats the black community. There are many others that support the fact that, to some, black lives simply do not matter. According to the Independent Office of Police Conduct, 163 people have died in or following police custody in the last 10 years in the UK. While 140 of those were white and 23 were from black and other minority ethnic groups, when you compare these figures to how much of the population these groups make up, black people are more than twice as likely to die in police custody. So why do we find ourselves back to square one nearly 30 years later post Stephen Lawrence? Or over 50 years later since the assassination of Martin Luther King? Or since slavery was abolished in the UK way back in 1833? How quickly people forget about these moments of tragedy that should teach us more about becoming better as a collective. Even during a worldwide pandemic, we cannot seem to rise above this and pull together. All of this trickles down from the fact that racism never really completely goes away. It is always there, sometimes quietly whispering through the night and at other times shouting in your face. It seeps into everything we do and constantly reminds us that despite our best efforts, some of us are selfish and we have not moved forward as far as we should. Many aspects are to blame for the setbacks in progress, and none more so than the creative industry. While it has times of brilliance, it cannot escape the underlying racial tension that is a true constant. There are many aspects to blame, but I'm a pasty-faced white designer who loves design, so let's start there. Over history, racism has been rife, and design and advertising has always stoked the fire. Now, I'm not saying that the creative industry is solely responsible, but it does have a soapbox, a voice, and it is a powerful tool for good and bad messaging. Thankfully, the majority of creative ideas are not tone deaf to the intricacies of dealing with equality. There are, however, a great deal of examples within design and advertising that beggars belief. I'm sure you've seen some of the most famous examples of racist branding and packaging. The Robertson's Jam Gollywog or the Aunt Jemima packaging were a long-standing product with questionable design. Since the 1900s, racism has had a strong influence within the design industry. People of colour were used in advertisements that depicted slavery and war in a negative way. The 1920s was a peak for racist advertising, and this helped reinforce the definition of white power. World War II posters depicted Japanese people as idiotic or crazy, emphasising features for comic effect and removing their humanity. This only sparked decades of racist design and messaging from the creative industry that followed a very similar pattern. When you see these adverts and branding and packaging, it feels like a different time. Assessing them out of their context of their own time leaves your mouth aghast. The idea that there was ever a time that this was an acceptable form of communication seems alien to the average person on the street, but like the racist undercurrent that flows through all current societies, it has not gone away simply over time. You only need to look into more recent, questionable brand and advertising campaigns to realise that it still exists today, shockingly. The top 10 examples that follow show off some of the worst racist branding and advertising within the last decade. Not the last 100 years, which is what you might expect, but the last decade leading right up to 2020. Number 10. Gucci faced a fierce backlash after they released a roll neck jumper that depicted blackface. The 2019 product was swiftly removed from stores. Number 9. Mary J. Blige advertised chicken snap wraps for Burger King back in 2012. This was ridiculed for perpetuating racial stereotypes about African Americans. Number 8. In 2017, Pepsi released an advert with Kendall Jenner. This ad depicted a protest where the drink brings people closer together through similar tastes. The advert was slammed for attempting to use the Black Lives Matter movement for profit. Number 7. Nivea's White is Purity advert is an example of nobody checking the creative thoroughly enough. The premise is simple. Nivea has an antiperspirant that was non-staining. The messaging, however, was way off the mark, and to make it even more of a mess, this advert only ran in the Middle East. Well done. Number 6. After 99 years of using the racist image of a Native American woman called Mia, Land O'Lakes finally realised how insensitive this was to have on their butter packaging. Number 5. Hats off to H&M in 2018. What a great shot of a black child wearing a hoodie that says coolest monkey in the jungle. After a battering on social media and various ambassadors for the brand making a quick exit, this campaign was ditched. Number 4. Dolce & Gabbana dropped the ball on an ad campaign that depicted various ethnic stereotypes aimed at the Chinese market. One of the 2018 adverts showed a Chinese model trying and failing to eat an Italian meal with chopsticks. 5 stars. Number 3. Heineken took down its 2018 ad campaign for appearing to be racist. The tagline "Lighter is better" was a mistake that cost them dearly. Heineken said, "We missed the mark. We have taken the feedback to heart and will use this to influence future campaigns." Number 2. The Fashion Institute of Technology recently decided that the use of monkey lips and oversized ears was a great idea despite fashion models refusing to wear them. Number 1. And now for my all-time favourite, Dove. Dove is another product that missed the mark and prompted massive outrage in 2017. The 3-second Facebook advert showed a black woman removing her top to reveal a white woman underneath. Is nobody checking this stuff? Honourable mentions. Ashton Kutcher, you mainstream dweeb. Why not put on some blackface and pretend to be Asian? Congratulations, Pop Chips, for reminding us all that any progress we may have made as a society is swept into the trash by this piece of head-smacking garbage.
And there you have it, a saddening look at a world that is not as progressive as it should be. Isn't it time we put these differences aside? With all the atrocities that exist in the world, we can surely do much better than this. We need to take a long look in the mirror and ask ourselves if we are doing enough to make a difference. All lives matter, but at this exact point in time, Black lives matter above all else. We must change our thinking towards each other and truly embrace these differences. I feel deeply ashamed of our society's inability to overcome this obstacle, and I'm left wondering if we even have the capacity to implement this change in behaviour at all. I really hope we do. But for now, as always, be good, stay safe, and be kind to one another.